Get ready for the action, because Oscar Piastri's absence at the Australian Grand Prix 2026 is shaking up the sponsor visibility landscape. We break down exactly what this means for Mastercard and how a single driver's participation can dramatically shift broadcast exposure in Formula One. We're diving deep into the data, comparing the impact of Piastri's absence versus other races to show you the real numbers behind sponsor performance.
Stop using your finger for notes, sketches, and edits. This Jam Jake stylus pen gives your iPad a smoother, more precise writing feel with palm rejection so your hand can rest naturally on the screen. It charges fast, works for hours, and comes with replacement tips. Perfect for school, work, or creative projects. Check the link in the comments to grab it on Amazon.
Next up, we're looking at the financial tightrope in international motorsport, as Italian financial authorities launch a massive tax probe targeting Formula One teams and drivers following recent races in Italy. Find out what the Guardia di Finanza is investigating regarding tax compliance for drivers like Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, and what this means for international financial transparency in the sport. The competition is heating up on the track because the FIA has made significant rule changes for the 2026 season after concerns about the new hybrid power system surfaced during the opening races. We examine exactly how the governing body adjusted energy parameters and safety systems to ensure faster, fairer racing moving forward. And finally, prepare for a massive surprise as Formula One star Liam Lawson swapped his race car for a motorbike at a city motocross track. Find out what this down-to-earth visit to Apex Motocross near Worcester reveals about Lawson's skills and what it means for his career. Don't miss the rest of this explosive news cycle. Stay tuned right here. Participation drives visibility. What Piastri's absence means for Mastercard at the F1 Australian Grand Prix. Moments before the start of the Australian Grand Prix 2026, Oscar Piastri's home race was abruptly halted by a crash on the warm-up lap, leaving his McLaren without a car before the race commenced. This incident immediately impacted the potential broadcast visibility and, consequently, the sponsor value for Mastercard. 3 weeks later, both Piastri and teammate Lando Norris completed the Japanese Grand Prix, with Piastri securing a podium finish. Comparing these two events provides critical insight into how sponsor exposure is generated in Formula One and the vital role driver participation plays in it, using Mastercard as a case study. While the Japanese race was shorter, offering fewer Mastercard-branded assets initially, the overall reduction in Mastercard exposure between the two races was only 24.8%. Indicating that Japan was proportionately more effective at establishing on-screen time for the brand. Analysis further showed that the reduction in exposure in Australia was magnified by the structural issue of one car being unable to start, reducing opportunities before the race even began. Asset-level data revealed distinct performance shifts. In Australia, car assets like the steering wheel, front wing, and side pod delivered the highest exposure and net sponsorship value X, while driver assets like clothing and helmet ranked lower. Driver helmet branding achieved the lowest total exposures, directly linked to Piastri's absence, though it maintained a high brand impact score due to strong on-screen moments. Team clothing emerged as Australia's best-performing asset, benefiting from strong on-screen centrality. In contrast, the Japanese race demonstrated a clear trend towards driver-focused assets generating greater visibility, amplified by Piastri's participation and podium finish. Driver helmet saw a massive 3,500% increase in exposure, jumping from 2 exposures in Australia to 72 in Japan, illustrating how sustained race participation and onboard camera coverage significantly boost visibility. Driver clothing exposure also rose by 207.1%, driven by Piastri's spotlight and podium performance. Steering wheel exposure increased by 100% in Japan, achieving the highest number of exposures across all monitored assets due to the inclusion of both McLaren cars. This comparison highlights a crucial finding. Assets relying on dynamic race action, particularly driver-specific branding, are far more sensitive to participation than static car assets. Car asset exposure declined in Japan as broadcast coverage shifted towards driver eye-view shots and high-speed footage. Beyond broadcast metrics, brand recall, measured by net sponsorship value X, also benefited from strong color contrast. Furthermore, online press coverage showed that in Australia, the absence of Piastri reduced online press value for Mastercard, focusing coverage on the exit rather than race performance. Conversely, a British driver's victory in the UK served as a powerful catalyst for media reach and value. In conclusion, F1 sponsor exposure is not solely determined by race duration or asset count. It is fundamentally driven by driver participation and on-track performance, with broadcast and online press coverage expanding reach through compelling race narratives. The comparison between the Australian and Japanese Grands Prix underscores how quickly exposure can shift based on race day conditions, demonstrating that participation and performance are key drivers of sponsor visibility. Italian financial authorities have launched a comprehensive tax probe targeting formula, one teams and drivers concerning compliance related to recent Grand Prix events held in Italy. The investigation, spearheaded by the Guardia di Finanza, is focused on verifying whether foreign teams and high-profile drivers have correctly fulfilled their fiscal obligations for income generated during races on Italian soil. Italy has historically hosted Formula One events, including the Italian Grand Prix at Monza and the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix at Imola. Authorities are now reviewing financial practices related to these events, as well as a one-off race held at the Mugello circuit in 2020. The probe aims to ascertain if all tax liabilities linked to driver earnings were properly declared and settled. Under Italian law, Formula One drivers are considered self-employed professionals, meaning they are required to pay taxes on income earned from events hosted in the country, regardless of their residency. The complexity stems from the international nature of F1 contracts, which involve intricate sponsorship deals, multi-jurisdictional agreements, and performance bonuses. The Guardia di Finanza is specifically examining how teams managed withholding tax obligations on behalf of their drivers, scrutinizing payment structures and contractual arrangements. The multi-regional investigation is being coordinated by authorities in Bologna, collaborating with regional branches of the Corte dei Conti in Lombardy, Emilia-Romagna, and Tuscany. Officials have already contacted both teams and drivers as part of a broad audit that extends back several years, including the 2020 season. The scope involves an in-depth review of contractual documentation, such as driver agreements and sponsorship deals, to map out income structuring and ensure compliance with Italian tax regulations. The inquiry was formally initiated last year following a complaint submitted by Bologna-based lawyer Alessandro May, prompting this wider review by Italian authorities. While no formal conclusions have been released, the investigation signals a thorough examination of financial practices within the sport, particularly given the substantial earnings of top-tier drivers. The outcome is anticipated to have significant implications for how Formula One manages tax compliance in host jurisdictions, potentially leading to greater scrutiny and the establishment of more standardized financial practices moving forward. Formula One has announced a set of technical rule changes for the 2026 season aimed at improving racing following performance issues observed in the opening races. The adjustments, agreed upon by the FIA on April 20th, will take effect starting from the Miami Grand Prix on May 3rd. The 2026 season introduced a significant technical overhaul featuring a new hybrid power system that grants electric motors a much larger role. Initial concerns arose because drivers struggled to manage the system effectively, with cars frequently harvesting electrical energy under braking rather than deploying it for acceleration, which impacted racing quality and placed a high burden on driver energy management. The FIA has addressed this by adjusting the energy parameters to reduce energy harvesting, allowing cars to run at full power more consistently. Furthermore, peak electrical power has been increased, aiming for faster, more straightforward racing with less reliance on energy-saving modes. To manage potential dangers, a cap has been placed on the maximum power boost available during race conditions to mitigate sudden speed differentials that could complicate overtaking. Safety enhancements have also been implemented for race starts. A new system is being introduced to detect cars that fail to accelerate normally off the line, automatically supplying them with a minimum level of power and flashing warning lights to alert following drivers, thereby reducing the risk of being hit from behind. This system is scheduled for testing in Miami before official adoption. For wet weather racing, changes include adjustments to tire temperatures to enhance grip on damp surfaces, a reduction in electrical power output to improve driver control, and simplified rear lighting to increase visibility in poor weather. FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem stated that the swift agreement on these changes demonstrated a shared commitment, emphasizing that safety and sporting fairness remain the FIA's highest priorities. The governing body expressed optimism for the remainder of the 2026 season. A Formula One star made an unexpected appearance at a city motocross track, showcasing a surprising aptitude for off-road riding. Formula One driver Liam Lawson swapped his racing car for a motorbike at Apex Motocross near Worcester on Monday, demonstrating his comfort and skill on two wheels. Lawson arrived just off the M5 near Junction 6, impressing facility managers with his riding abilities and friendly demeanor. Lee Jones of Apex Motocross described the visit as both a shock and an honor. He noted that Lawson, a New Zealand racing driver competing in Formula One for Racing Bulls, has been riding with top motocross and supercross stars in the USA, making his visit particularly special. Jones remarked that Lawson was lovely and down-to-earth and enjoyed chatting with him. Lawson's background includes a competitive start in karting at age 6, progressing through various junior formulae. He has competed in several major championships, including the Toyota Racing Series, FIA Formula 3, and Formula 2. His career highlights include finishing runner-up in the 2017 Australian F4 and various European championships. His visit to the motocross track highlighted a versatile skill set, proving he is equally comfortable at high speeds on both cars and motorcycles.